The people who vanished in the USSR. Imagine waking up one morning in a world where a single knock on the door could erase you from history. No trial, no explanation, no farewell to loved ones. One day you exist, the next day you are gone. In Stalin's Soviet Union, this wasn't just a nightmare. It was a terrifying reality that haunted millions. This is the story of the people who vanished in the USSR, a tale of fear, secrecy, and unanswered questions. The era of disappearances during the 1930s and 1940s, the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin operated on a system of absolute control. To preserve that control, the regime turned disappearance into a political tool. Neighbors whispered about midnight arrests. Families avoided asking questions. Even pronouncing a name could be dangerous if that name had been erased by the state. Officially, it was called repression or arrest. In practice, it meant someone simply ceased to exist in public life. Photographs were altered to remove their faces. Records were destroyed. Sometimes, even their graves were hidden. The result was a society living in constant dread, where reality and rumor blurred. Stories of those who disappeared take the case of Nikolai Yezhov, once the feared head of the NKVD, the Soviet secret police. He orchestrated mass arrests during the Great Purge. But in 1939, he was arrested himself, shot in secret, and erased from official photos. His name became a whisper, a warning to others that no one was safe. Or consider ordinary citizens, teachers, engineers, poets, who vanished after a neighbor's denunciation or a careless joke. Entire families sometimes disappeared overnight, their apartments sealed, their belongings left behind like a frozen moment in time. Years later, new tenants moved in, never knowing who had lived there before. In remote regions, rumors spread of secret trains carrying prisoners to labor camps beyond the Arctic Circle. Some camps were so isolated that survivors later said they felt they had been buried alive. For every name recorded, countless others left no trace at all. The drama of daily fear, the tragedy of these disappearances, wasn't just in the loss of life. It was in the destruction of trust. Children learned not to speak of missing relatives. Wives pretended their husbands were on a trip. Friends crossed the street to avoid eye contact. In such an atmosphere, even the innocent felt guilty. Writers and artists encoded their fears in metaphors. Poems circulated privately, warning of black cars in the night. Painters left blank spaces in their canvases to symbolize absent friends. Yet these small acts of defiance also kept memory alive. Why did people vanish? Some disappearances were political, eliminating rivals, silencing critics. Others were random, the product of quotas and paranoia. Secret police files later revealed absurd charges, anti-Soviet jokes, foreign sympathies, bourgeois tendencies. A single accusation could trigger a chain reaction leading to arrest, interrogation, and exile or execution. But not all vanishings were official. In the vastness of the USSR, some people simply fled, escaping labor camps, crossing borders, or disappearing into remote villages under new identities. For their families, the effect was the same: silence, uncertainty, and grief. The aftermath and the mystery. When Stalin died in 1953, a slow thaw began. Survivors returned from camps. Relatives received letters explaining, sometimes decades late, that a loved one had been executed. Monuments were built, archives partially opened. Yet, even today, many files remain classified. MASS graves are still being discovered in forests and fields. Whole chapters of lives are missing. This lingering mystery fuels speculation. How many truly vanished? Were their secret prisons never recorded? Did some escape to the West under new names? Historians can estimate, but the exact numbers are shadows. Conclusion: Echoes of the Vanished. The story of the people who vanished in the USSR is not just a tale of the past. It's a warning about the power of secrecy and fear. It's also a story of resilience, of families who kept photos hidden, of dissidents who wrote diaries in code, of historians today who still dig for the truth. Next time you see a faded photograph from the Soviet era, look closely at the gaps. A face blurred, a name scratched out, an empty space at the edge of history. Behind each absence is a life, a story, a disappearance. And in those absences, the USSR still speaks, a whisper from a time when vanishing was an instrument of power and remembering was an act of courage.